Thank you very much, most worshipful. And let me just say at this point that I would like to, on behalf of Frank S. Land, welcome all of our members and guests. We have the Grand Master with us tonight, and that is very, very good. Appreciate that.
No problem, Jerry.
We have some items to be discussed after our guest speaker this evening, so I ask you to remain on just a little bit longer after we get through with our guest speaker, if you will, and we'll take care of those things immediately. Other than that, most worshipful Jim, would you please do the introduction of our guest and the topic for tonight?
Absolutely. God, letting people in, this is exciting. So, back in the day, I used to chair the what was then known as the Wardens Conference, and I was looking for brethren to be table masters. I was specifically looking for brethren out of the Spokane area. Doug Tucker was deputy grand master at the time, and he recommended two guys from Spokane, Barry Retkowski and Ryan Leonard. So I gave Ryan a call and said, Ryan, I'd love to have you come and be a table master at the Wardens Conference. And the first words out of his mouth were, you need to know something. I said, what? I'm blind. I said, so what? Can you handle debate at a table? Little did I know the friendship that would come out of that after all these years. Fast forward to when I was deputy grand master, Don Monks said to me that he was going to be appointing somebody from Spokane to be deputy and that I would inherit him, and so I would need to know what he was all about. Well, Don already told me stuff I already knew. Because one of the things that you learn about people who have quote unquote disabilities is that they actually have greater abilities. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our Grand Bible bearer, very worshipful brother Ryan Leonard. Ryan?
Thank you, Jim. And brethren, as Jim knows very well, I like for brothers to know what they're getting when they ask me to take on a project. Always happy to serve, but I want you to know what you're getting. Anyway, greetings from the Lilac City of Spokane, where our air quality has been upgraded from hazardous to very unhealthy. So on that note, brethren, I've been joining out the Frank S. Land Zoom sessions since late April, early May, somewhere in that time frame. And that time, you probably noticed that I do wear a unusual eyepiece. And you might be thinking, what's this guy doing? Is he inspecting jewelry? Well, actually, the eyepiece compensates for a vision condition that I have had since birth. And with that, I'll go ahead and jump into that. That condition is called ocular nystagmus. And let me get to it here. Yeah, here we go. All right. Get up to the top and there we are. Okay. So again, the condition's called ocular nystagmus, and what that entails, it involves a rapid movement of the eyes, and an uncontrollable movement at that. There, with this, you can have horizontal nystagmus, which is a movement from left to right. Vertical nystagmus, which is a movement of the eyes up and down. And rotary nystagmus, which is where the eyes move in a circular manner. These movements are often they're often rapid, but they can vary from slow to fast. And often people with this condition, they can experience either blurriness or some shakiness. And to compensate, a lot of times they'll tilt their heads or turn in a direction to help them see clearer, which will help them slow down the movements in the eyes. And there are two types of nystagmus. There's congenital, which is the one that I have, It's commonly found in infants, and it's usually between the ages of 6 weeks and 3 months. Children with this condition have it in both eyes, and as I mentioned, the movements can vary between slow and rapid. Doctors often don't know what causes this condition, although they theorize that it can be hereditary, passed down from parents to children. And often they see things as they will see things more at this age. They often see things as blurry more often than shaky, as this picture illustrates. Now the next nystagmus, and if I'm moving too fast, please tell me and I'll slow it down a little bit. But the next nystagmus is acquired nystagmus, and I didn't even know about this one until I started working on this presentation. Acquired nystagmus is common in people with serious medical conditions or folks who have had drug or alcohol abuse issues. And unlike children with congenital nystagmus, acquired nystagmus more often involves a shakiness in their field of view, as this picture will illustrate. And let's see. Now, in my own case, I've been fortunate enough to neither to experience the blurriness nor the shakiness. My big problem is I can't control the movements in my eyes, and I'm extremely nearsighted, which I'll demonstrate at the conclusion of this PowerPoint. But if you want to know a little bit more about ocular nystagmus, you can get that information off the American Academy of Ophthalmology, which you can see the link here, and it's posted down in the notes of the PowerPoint as well. So now you know a little bit about the condition, and so that comes to the eyepiece. And you see a couple of pictures here. The name of the eyepiece is the Walters telescopic lens, and it can be extended for close-up reading and retracted for distance viewing, just depending on what my needs might be. With this lens, I get the equivalent of 20/40 vision. Without it, I have 2400 vision, which makes me legally blind under Washington state law. As you can see, the lens is mounted directly into the right lens on my glasses. I can't control the movements in my left eye enough to make use of a second one, and so I didn't bother having another one mounted there. Plus, these lenses are expensive, and insurance companies will not touch them, so I've not been able to get insurance on them, which is a bit of a drag, so I treat them very carefully. How was I able to get one of these lenses? Well, that came thanks to the Lions Low Vision Clinic here in Spokane. And over the years, ophthalmologists and optometrists have become more knowledgeable about them. So if you just go to a regular eye doctor appointment and ask about it, they should be able to answer your questions. Now, the company that provides the lens is called the Walters Low Vision Clinic. And I've got a couple of some different pictures of the different lenses that they offer. There are two different groupings. Well, excuse me, there's a total of 5 different groupings, but I only included the first 2 in this presentation because I wanted to focus on the lenses that can be used for day-to-day visual assistance. These can be mounted into glasses, ring fingers, spectacle clamps, and they can also be used as handheld units. And I'll give you a few seconds to look over the different lenses that are in this group of photos, and then I'll move down to the next one. And if anyone has a question along the way, please feel free to jump in.
Hey, Ryan. Okay, Ryan, I'm going to jump in with a question then.
Yeah, Steve.
So what's the weight? I mean, you're obviously only having it on one side of your eyeglasses. So what's the weight of the lens?
You know, I've never actually had it weighed. I can tell you the magnification in the lens is a power 5, but I've never had it weighed. So in all honesty, I couldn't tell you.
So you don't really, as you're wearing your glasses, you don't really feel the weight of it being on one side of your nose, if you will, than the other side.
Right. I really don't. Now, the very first pair that I got, which was back in 1984, those were had metal frames and actual glass in the lenses instead of plastic, and those were much heavier. With these, I barely even noticed it.
Okay.
Of course,
Good.
then again, I've been wearing them for all this time, so.
Are you able to see me?
I'm sorry?
Are you able to see and hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Ivan, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Good.
Okay, I need you to put yourself on mute, brother, if you would. Okay, if everybody's done, I'll move down to the next photo. And there's some more lenses. The other three groups, those get into more of handheld units and units that are mounted onto tripods and stuff like that. And I wanted to limit the scope of the presentation to those lenses that can benefit people in day-to-day visual needs. And down at the bottom in the notes, you'll see the different classifications, like there's a 4x12 and a 6x16 and what have you. And I will tell you that the magnification in my particular lens is a power 5, which again gives me the equivalent of 20/40 vision compared to 2400 without it. So. Okay.
Well, looking at these pictures of the lenses, it looks like camera lenses. In other words, you can get them in different sizes with different powers and stuff. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
absolutely. You can. And like I say, they can be used as just handheld units too. So it just depends on what your circumstances might call for. Okay. Now, a little while ago, I mentioned my very first pair, which I got back in 1984. If you look down in the lower right-hand corner of that picture, that is that very first pair. You can see the metal frames, the actual glass for the lenses. And if you put a little bit of red hair on top of my head, I might pass as an older version of Arnold Poindexter from Revenge of the Nerds. So those were often referred to as nerd glasses that I wore back in those days, and you can kind of see why. I like to poke a little fun at my own handicaps. Why not? And now we'll move on to today's pair. The lens on this particular pair, the telescope I've had since 1991. The glasses themselves I got back in 2013. And if you're wondering how they determine where to position the lens, your eye doctor just looks carefully to see where your eye naturally focuses, and then they'll put like a blue dot or something like that on that particular spot in the glasses, and then they'll ship it off to the Walters Low Vision Company, where they'll they'll put the necessary hole in the glasses, mount the telescope, and what have you. And that whole process takes about 3 weeks, as I recall. Now, on a side note, doctors have informed me that the good news about nystagmus is, while it won't get any better, it won't get any worse. Having said that, I'm also type 2 diabetic, and so I have to be on the lookout for diabetic retinopathy. And what that amounts to, it's a condition where high blood sugar causes damage to the blood vessels in the retina, and that damage can cause those blood vessels to swell and leak, or it can cause them to close off entirely and prevent blood flow. And you can even see once in a while you can get cases of abnormal new blood cells on the retina. Any number of those can cause blindness. And as you can see from the pictures, on the left-hand side you got normal vision. You see the two kids each holding a ball. On the right-hand side is an illustration of what diabetic retinopathy might look like. Thankfully, I just had my eye exam a couple of weeks ago, and there's no sign of that, but it's something that I'll be keeping an eye on for the rest of my life. I'll open this up to some more questions here in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to give you a demonstration as well. And let's see.
I got you, Ryan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jim. I want to give a demonstration on how the lens focuses. And let me just adjust that real quick. In this position, the lens is in the retracted position, so that's for distance viewing. I want to see something far away. Can everybody see this okay? I will assume yes. So anyway, to focus it, it just twists like this, and it goes out as far as here, and in that position, that's where I would use it for close-up reading. And then, of course, it just retracts like that, and there you be. And when I'm not using them, they go into a wooden box, which you should have seen at the top of the presentation. And that box serves as the case. It's well padded and provides some very good protection. The other demonstration that I wanted to show you is, as I mentioned, I don't experience the blurriness or shakiness that's often associated with nystagmus, but I am extremely nearsighted. To that extent, I've got my copy of the standard work here, and without the glasses, I would have to get down to about here just to begin to read, like the closing prayer on the entered apprentice degree. I had to get there just to make out the parts of Supreme Architect of the Universe. So that gives you just an idea of how nearsighted I really am. But normally I just wear the glasses, and I can see people just fine in presentations like this. And that is kind of ocular nystagmus in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. In fact, I'll go ahead and answer one that I get a lot. Would this lens cover conditions such as macular degeneration? And my answer to the honest answer to that is I would speak to an eye doctor. The optimist in me wants to believe that yes, it would work, but with macular degeneration, that condition gets progressively worse, and so you might be changing out the magnification in the lenses frequently. And again, I haven't been able to get insurance on these, so that replacement could get to be an expensive venture. So I would say talk to an eye doctor before you look at something like that. And if any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
So Ryan, when you were a deputy, you were basically you have to one of the jobs is to visit all your lodges.
Mm-hmm.
You get around pretty well, don't you?
I do. Spokane has a pretty good bus system for the size of town that we are. When I needed it, I could take buses to the different lodges. Most of the time, though, I was very fortunate in that a brother was able to get me to the different lodges. Here in Spokane, most of the lodges had at least one member who lived in my neighborhood on the South Hill, so I was able to get a ride, like to say Audubon Park, North Hill, or even out to Concordia out in Millwood. And now places like Cheney and Medical Lake, the bus service out in those communities is limited service and shuts down at 8 p.m. And you can imagine the difficulty when you open a lodge at 7:30. But anyway, the brothers in both of those lodges were very good to see that I got out there, I was able to do what I needed to do, and then saw that I got home afterwards. And I'll give Medical Lake a lot of kudos for that, even with the problems that they had all those years that they did. And to this day, if I feel like I'm cooped up and need to get out of Spokane for just a few hours, if I give them about a week's notice, some of the brothers from Temple 42 will come into town, pick me up, and I can go to visit them and lodge out there.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Are there, I'm going to switch views here really quickly. Are there any other questions for Ryan at all? I'm just absolutely fascinated. I think I told the story once that I was in Spokane and Ryan joined myself and Doug Tucker up to
Colville.
For an event that didn't happen. And if anybody knows how far Colville is, you know what a ride that was for nothing to happen.
Yeah.
In any event, we got back home. We dropped Doug off, and give you an idea, you know, how you forget things. I asked Ryan, get me back to, you know, when we get close, get me back to your house. Well, he guided me all the way back to his house, and it's like he's like human GPS. It took me a while to realize, wait a minute, I'm driving and the blind guy is directing me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I not only did that from Doug, going home from Doug's place, but well, I'll give you a little background on this story too. Jim had been over, had come over that Friday because he had a district meeting, which also didn't go off. The deputy was not prepared, so he called me up on a Friday night from his motel room in Ritzville, asked if there was anything going on in Spokane this weekend. And at the time, the only thing going on was the Scottish Rite 30th degree. The Blue Lodges all had their stated meetings. I hadn't been informed of any degree work going on. So he and I met up that Saturday morning, went to that 30th degree, and then he came to my place so he could rest up for a little bit before going up to Colville. And but before that, he wanted to go down to Nordstrom and get his shoes shined. So I navigated him from my place on the South Hill down to Nordstrom, only to find out the shoe shine place was closed. So we went back to my place, rested a little while longer, and then Jim and I left to start up Colville. We went and picked up Doug Tucker, got into Colville. Their event didn't happen, so we came back into Spokane, and we actually picked up Glynis Tucker, and the four of us went out to dinner at Round Table Pizza on the north side that evening. So far from anything Jim had planned, but it was a fun day nonetheless.
It was indeed.
Yeah, he got to see a blind guy navigate him around Spokane, and I got to witness a day on the life of the Grand Master, which I'm grateful for to this day.
Now, Ryan, you ran for public office, did you not?
I did. I actually ran twice for state representative from Spokane's 3rd legislative district, which is primarily the downtown Spokane area. I was living downtown at the time. I ran against Jeff Gomboski in 2002. And where I gained, I think, 34% of the vote. And then 2 years later, I ran against Gomboski's replacement, Tim Ormsby, and I pulled down 41% of the vote that year. So yeah, I ran for public office twice, and as at least some of you know, I currently serve on the Grand Lodge Legislative Task Force.
Fantastic. And you were also secretary of Manitou 246, weren't you?
Yes, I've been the worshipful master of my lodge three times, and my mother lodge was actually York Lodge number 234. When I was living downtown, that's when I petitioned to become a Mason, and York was meeting in the old Masonic Temple on Riverside. So I had petitioned there. It became their worshipful master. I was actually the last worshipful master before they folded up and merged with North Hill 210. At that point, I affiliated with Manitou because North Hill would have been a trip across town on the bus, and really wasn't wanting to do that. And my finances at the time weren't allowing me to stay at the downtown temple because in addition to lodge dues, you were looking at a $45 Masonic Temple Association building assessment. So I went to Manitou, which worked out beautifully. At the time I affiliated, my mother and I were living in a house together on Grand Boulevard, which I could walk from there to Manitou Lodge in about 15 minutes. Anyway, I was master of York Lodge 1 year, and then served 2 consecutive years as master of Manitou. And I served as its secretary from 2010, when I laid down the gavel in the East, through 2014. And then by 2015, I was installed as the district deputy in District 27 for Most Worshipful Brother Don Monks, and reappointed for yourself. And now I'm here serving as Grand Bible Bearer for Most Worshipful Brother Chris.
I think you all can see why I have such respect for this good brother. Ryan, it's great that you joined us. It's always wonderful to learn a little bit about the individuals we call brother, because the more we get to know each other, the deeper the friendships that we make. So Ryan,
Absolutely.
on behalf of the lodge, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. And as
Absolutely.
always, as you know, you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the show.
I'll be here, I have thoroughly enjoyed these Zoom sessions at Frank S. Land. It's given me a chance to know all of you better, and it's certainly a good way of passing up the time. Anymore, I turn my TV set on and I'm asleep in 15 minutes, so I'd much rather be doing this.
You know, while we're on the subject, the
Well, we're not
Grandmaster's here, and
we're not gonna put you to sleep, brother. There's no way.
I
you know
appreciate
that, yeah. Grandmaster, Lynn's charity was going to be a vision clinic in Seattle,
That is correct.
and it just seems natural
still
for you to follow up with it, to follow up with what Ryan said.
Yes, Ryan, thank you very much. Lynn was an optician. I'm not sure many knew that, but she was. She taught opticianry and the anatomy of the eye, and she dealt with all these weird diseases that I'd never heard of, and was constantly, she would have loved this presentation. When she was, before I got elected, the Seattle King County Health Clinic has a vision program where they give away free eye exams and free glasses. This last year, did about 1,100 of them and arranged for a couple of people to get cataract surgery and some other stuff. I can't remember all of it. But Lynn coordinated that part of the program for many years. And so this year, I have basically three, I guess. There's Washington Masonic Charities always. I'm selling my ties, my pins, and my coins, and any profit we make will be split between Shriners Hospital there in Spokane and the Seattle King County Health Clinic, their vision program in Lynn's name. So yes,
Fantastic.
and thank you very much, Ron. I found that very interesting tonight.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a few months, and then Jim brought it up to me again over the summer while Manitoba wasn't meeting, and so that gave me a chance to do a little bit of research on the condition, start to put this presentation together. And with his help, I got a pretty good PowerPoint, and I think overall a good presentation.
I
With that,
agree.
Thank you much, Ryan, Grandmaster and
Thank you.
Worship Master.